What's up, everybody? Welcome to Norse Arms. My name's Alan. Today we're going to be going over safe firearms handling practices, as well as proper grip and body positioning for when you're at the range. If you're into that or want to know more, stick around. Alright, so let's go over basic firearm safety. First thing on the list is you always want to keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction. And usually what this means is if you're at a gun shop or at any kind of sports store or anything like that where you're at the gun counter, you're going to want to make sure to keep your firearm pointed towards the deck. It's the safest place in any kind of setting like that. You're going to have people on your right, your left, behind you, and in front of you. You want to make sure that the muzzle of your firearm is pointed in that safe direction. You always want to act like your firearm is loaded. Even if you know it's not, you don't want to be flagging people. Flagging people is when you brush the muzzle by them or you point it at them. Whether it's loaded or not, it's not a safe condition to be in. Following that, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. That's called indexing. Anytime you hear an instructor or anybody bring that up and say, hey, indexing, that's what it means. Don't put your finger on that trigger until you're ready to shoot. Don't point it at anything you're not willing to destroy, and you always want to know what your target is and what lies beyond it, because anytime something comes out of the muzzle of your firearm, you are responsible until it stops moving. So make sure you do that, and make sure that you always check. So what you're going to want to do when you first pick up your firearm, whether they just did it or not, if it comes to you like this, looking like it's loaded, you're going to drop your magazine out. There shouldn't be anything in it, but just in case there is, you always drop it first. Then you're going to operate the slide on any semi-automatic. For a dual-action revolver, it's a little bit different, and we'll get into that coming up after this. You're going to check inside the bore, make sure that there's nothing in there. If you got to, stick your finger in there. Lock the slide back and keep your hand away from the slide release. This is a great way to end up getting bit by your slide. This thing slides forward with a lot of force. With that, we'll get into actual grip angles, and we're going to get into proper grip for safety and accuracy means at the gun range. There's a lot that can happen and a lot of things that can go wrong if you're not holding onto your firearm properly. I'm sure many of you have seen the video of the revolver where it goes off, he loses grip, but his finger's still on that trigger, and it comes back and it almost takes him and scalps him. Guys, you got to be safe. So, with that, let's roll into proper grip angles on handguns. Alright, so when you have a semi-automatic pistol, especially with Glocks are a little bit different, and a lot of people say that they don't like them, but it's because they don't know, instead of pointing with your index finger at the target while gripping, you're using your thumbs more. It squares off the firearm a little bit better, and it allows you to be a lot more accurate with it. So any Glock style, Glock clone, you're going to want to do that. This is a Palmetto State dagger. You can get parts for these and build them yourself. You can assemble them yourself. But they are based off of a Gen 3 Glock. So they're really similar. They're not exact. The grips are a little bit different. So these ones, they still have that though. So when you go to pick up your firearm at the range and you're ready to shoot, what you're going to do is you're going to position your hand high up on that beaver tail. You're going to want to get it up there so that the meat of your hand is in that hollow. When you grip with your fingers on the front, making sure to be indexing. And then you're going to come in with your non-dominant hand, and the meat of your hand here is going to go right in this slot. You want as much contact with the surface of the firearm as you possibly can. And then you can either keep your thumbs up and cross them over like this, but what I've found helps me control the firearm better is to bring my thumbs down, and it allows me to point properly. Now when you're doing this, you don't want to death grip with your right arm. Your right hand or your dominant hand. If you're lefty, you know it's going to be the opposite. You're going to grip it like this. Non-dominant hand's going to come in like this and wrap, and you're going to have the opposite. But your dominant hand is just to get a decent grip. You're not going to death squeeze it. So you're going to come in and you're going to grip and pinch with your arms. You're going to pinch them together like this. Right hand's not gripping hard, left hand is. You're going to get a lot less shake and you're going to be a lot more accurate. When you present the firearm and you bring it up, when you bring it out here, you don't want to lock your arms. because then you're just going to be dealing with a lot of the recoil and a lot of bounce. You want your arms to be somewhat slack and slightly tense, and what you want to do with that is lock your wrists. When you lock your wrists and you keep your elbows bent, they act as a shock absorber. So when you're firing, you'll be able to keep your sight picture a lot easier than if you lock your arms. You bring them out and lock your arms like this, and you're going to be bouncing all over the place and having a hard time finding your target. So, bring in, second hand, squeeze, and bring out. And when you do that, you should be pretty well lined out with your optic or with your sights, and you can get on target. When you're doing this, you can also do it and still be placing on target without actually utilizing your sights. If you bring it up here like this and you're here and you're not even up all the way, in a defensive situation, if your thumb is pointing at it on a Glock, you're good. If your index finger's pointing at it for most other semi-automatic style pistols, then you're gonna hit your target. And again, that goes back to knowing what your target is and what's beyond it. If there's innocent bystanders, you do not want to fire unless you know you have that clean positioning. So, with that, that's semi-automatic handguns. Now we're going to jump over to revolvers, because it's a little bit different and there's another safety aspect there that we're going to cover. So now with revolvers, there are two types of revolvers out there. There's a single action and a double action. The one I have here is a Colt 38 Special double action revolver. Now what that means is you can either just fire it by pulling the hammer back and then pulling the trigger, or you can leave the hammer where it sits at rest and pull the trigger and it will activate. This one is a little bit sketchy. It's kind of like with the semi-automatic, your safety is going to be your finger with any of these double action revolvers. Now to make sure that they're clear, you're going to come over onto the left side of the firearm, and there's going to be a release of some kind. All of them are different. Some of them have a slide forward or a slide back. This one in particular is a slide back. So what you're going to do is slide that back, drop the cylinder out to the side. You're going to check in the cylinder, make sure that there's nothing in there. Close it. Don't swing them shut. You weaken the arms and you will break them at some point. But you're safe and ready to go. Now, let's get into gripping it and making sure that you're not going to have any kind of issue or injury from firing a revolver. So, when you grip a revolver, it is very similar, but it is not the same as a semi-automatic handgun. You're going to grip it the same way like this, keeping your right hand, if you're right hand dominant, if you're left hand, it's the other one. Your dominant hand open enough to where you can get something in there on meat for your non-dominant hand. But instead of bringing your hand forward like this, like you would on a semi-automatic, you want to keep your thumb rested back further, because if you don't, you're going to get blow-by. There is a very small gap. I don't know if we can get in there and actually see it. There's a very small gap between your barrel and your cylinder, and a lot of the pressure from the ignition of the powder is going to come out of that. The explosion's going to blow out the sides of it. If you put your hand there, you're going to get an injury ranging anywhere from a severe burn to possibly losing a digit. So keep your hand away from the front end of this cylinder as much as you can if you're out firing it. So that is a double action. Same concept though, you're going to be squeezing, bringing it up, getting your sight picture, and firing. Don't lock your arms, keep them up and bent to act as a shock absorber. Okay? So now we're going to get into the second type of revolver, which is a single action. These ones, they're not so much used for self-defense, but they are a fun gun to take out to the range, and they are a good one to know how to actually operate. So let's get into that. Alright guys, so now we have what I consider to be one of the perfect starter handguns for somebody who might be a little bit uneasy about firearms or is just learning the mechanics of them, and that is the Heritage Rough Rider. These are a single action revolver, so they will not fire if you don't pull the hammer back. They also have a secondary manual safety on the back left side, which is fantastic because there's a lot of people out there that get concerned with accidentally hitting the trigger. So if you have that and you pull the hammer back and you don't disengage that safety, it's not going to go off. These are fantastic little pistols. They are extremely budget friendly. And if you are into customizing what you have and you want to learn how to customize a firearm, these are a great way to go. The lower frames, you can switch them out for the bird's head grip or a standard grip like what was on the other one, for about $40, and it's simple. There's a couple of flathead screws that hold it on in place, as well as they offer a magnum cylinder. So you got a 22 long rifle that usually comes with them. They sell kits where it comes with both on some of their pistols, but they have the 22 Magnum as well. Great little firearm, fun to shoot, but when it comes to checking to see if they're clear, they're a little bit different than pretty much any other firearm out there. On the right side of the firearm at the back here, next to the hammer, there's going to be the loading gate, and you're going to swing that open, and you'll be able to see the cylinders. Now to check them, you keep your finger off the trigger, lightly pull back on the hammer, and you can rotate it, and you can see each cylinder as it goes by, and you can check to make sure that there's nothing in it. And then you're all set, ready to go. You can clean it, do what you need to. Disassembly is a little bit different as well. Instead of swinging open like the other revolver, it needs to come apart. But it's really simple, guys. I can't show it on here, as many of you know, but you push this little button right here, and there's a rod that goes in there. It's the cylinder rod. There's a textured section here. You push in on that, pull that out, your cylinder drops out. This is also how you change between the 22 long rifle and the 22 Magnum, or WMR. If you're looking for ammunition, it's 22 WMR. But these are great for first timers. These are great for teaching somebody. They're amazing, especially if you have it with a 22 long rifle cylinder. There's no recoil, there's no kickback, there's nothing. They're low noise, and they're just fun to shoot. You can grip them the same way when you go out shooting, but when it comes to the bird's head, me personally, I just like to go out and have a good time and just cowboy shoot. You load that back and you just bring it up one-handed, and it's a blast. I absolutely love these little pistols. They're great, good quality, and excellent budget. You can pick them up for anywhere between like $130 to $150, depending on which model you get and what style you get. And like I said, customizing, for $80, you can customize the entire thing how you want. You can get different style grips. Depending on which grips, they're going to be different prices, but you can change the frame out to the bird's head from a standard gunslinger. You can get the Magnum set up on them. They're just fun little pistols, but they're great for training and great for a first handgun. If you're looking into that and you're kind of sketched out by yourself because you don't know a whole lot, this is one of the great options that I see. With that, let's go ahead and hop into long guns. Alright guys, now we're going to be talking about long guns. This portion here can apply to standard rifles, ARs, hunting rifles, shotguns, pretty much any long gun. And a long gun is a rifle or a shotgun, just so you understand the terminology. This right here is a Ruger 1022 that I have in a center balance chassis, so it's a little bit shorter. As you can see, I can actually get this one to fit all the way on the camera this close up, which is why I chose it. This has a secondary safety on it. You have your standard safety at the back, and then you have one on the chassis itself that disengages the trigger on this. With a bull pump on the 1022s, your entire trigger housing and actual mechanism are at the back here. So you have a trigger, you have your safety, you have your mag release right here, all of that. This thing's awesome because you don't have to actually charge it here. They have a secondary charging handle on the left side that will operate it. And you always check and see, make sure, have your mag dropped out, make sure you're cleared, and you're good to go. Right now it's unsafe. And you can drop this, fire, safe, you can safe, fire, it's an awesome little setup if you're looking for something fun for not too much money. When firing these, the actual grip of the hand isn't that important. It's pretty natural when it comes to a rifle. They have this one set up. There's no safety on the left side like most rifles that you're going to see. It's either going to be a left side safety or it's going to be a push button safety. This one, the safety is over here and it's a slide. Okay. When you are bringing this up, you want to have your left hand not necessarily out as far as you can. You want it comfortable and in range. but I wouldn't bring it back like this, because then you're going to be dealing with a lot of the muzzle hop for something that actually does have recoil. This has no recoil whatsoever. It's a 22 long rifle, so it pops. It acts like a BB gun. It's not a BB gun. Don't be shooting this at anyone. That's not a good thing. But when you go to bring these up, you want to square off with your target, and you want to have more of like a fighting stance or a boxer. So if you have a boxer, your dominant foot's back, your dominant hand's back, your non-dominant foot and non-dominant hand are out, so you're going to have that steady ground underneath you, and you want to square up and stand up as tall as you can, and you want to keep your elbows in. I've seen a lot of people online that are new to shooting, and they have their arms out like this, and that opens up your shoulder for injury. So anything that's going to have any kind of substantial recoil, even an AR-15 that has minimal recoil, can cause some issues inside of your shoulder. So bring your arm in, it tightens the muscles up and it tightens up the bones, so that way you're not going to have any chance of damaging any tendons. When you shoulder a rifle, there's a lot of different ways to do it. What I've found works best for me is just that upper outer pec section, not actually in the shoulder joint and not on the collarbone. I put it right into that upper pec, and this allows me to keep more straight up and down instead of leaning over so much, and it allows me to square off better with the target. This is going to give you a good balance, this is going to give you a sturdy base, and it's going to allow you to maintain better accuracy. With that being said, when you're out at the range, guys, listen to your range masters. They can be snappy at times, but they have to deal with a lot of people for a long period of time, and there's a lot of people that go in that don't know any of this information even. So it's a safety hazard. When you are dealing with firearms, make sure if you're cleaning them, you're going to be going through the process of making sure that the chambers are clear and that there's no ammunition in them. I've seen one too many accidents with that, and I would like to help you guys avoid getting that issue. Going to the gun shops with a rifle or anything, it's the same thing. Keep it pointed down at the deck. Don't be pointing it at people and flagging people and all that kind of stuff. Indexing, rules apply across the board. You stick to the rules, you're going to be 1,000 times safer than if you don't. Guys, I'd like to thank you for coming, and leave a comment, like, follow, share, subscribe. We're over on Facebook, we're on TikTok, and now we're on YouTube. I thank you so much for popping in. If there's anything you'd like to see or anything you think I may have missed, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Guys, have a good one. Stay safe.